All right, what's happening, y'all? My name is Alfred Conteh. I am an Atlanta area artist. I've been here for roughly 20 years. But I'm from Fort Valley, Georgia. Educated at Hampton University, undergrad. Georgia Southern, graduate degree. When it comes to this work right here, what you're seeing is a grouping of work from a series I've been working through for the last, 12 years, called Two Fronts, right? And this work is a collection of paintings and drawings that is descriptive of mainly black folks from Atlanta, but it's in part a descriptive of my perception of America in regard to what two fronts means. And two fronts means is that as a people, we are at war on two fronts, constantly. From the societal sense and what those societal factors, how they affect us in regard to how we vote, how we spend our money, how we raise our children, all of these things. So when it comes to that perspective, I've been working through, well, let me give you a little bit more of a background into how the series started. The series started with a series of landscape works. And in these landscape works, I fashioned these colossuses, like you've ever seen the Statue of Liberty, or you're aware of the Colossus of Rhodes. Those effigies, those statues are emblematic of a time to commemorate a space, to celebrate things. But in my work, I use those to be emblematic of the people that lived in certain neighborhoods, right? So I know April she's one of my collectors, but she's familiar with my work. From that, I actually had an example of that to show you all while I'm up here talking. But I dovetailed from that into more portraiture-based work because there was a distance that work had when in regard to what I wanted to communicate and things I wanted to speak to. And when it even came to me getting the imagery from that, most of it was based on photographs I was taking, going around all through the city, out in Decatur, spots throughout Southwest and whatnot, meeting and talking, with black folks everywhere. But I was doing that at a distance, like from across the street and capturing people, at the bus stops and here and there. But to make the work more personal, I had to, take photographs from personal space. So from that 75 millimeter space to the 35, like from across the street to within arm distance. So when you take pictures of people within arm distance and you got to talk to people. I'm not a real person, people kind of person sometimes. But to break out of that, that's one of the things I had to accept and incorporate into my practice. And with that, I started mining through some ideas and things I was learning about people in general, especially people who live here in Atlanta, Southwest. A lot of the things I was getting from folks just in, the conversations about who I am and what I do was why they were there, right? Children, family, jobs, all types of things. And that became very informative into how I wanted to steer the work. Instead of becoming like these big brushstrokes about my notions about folks who stayed in neighborhoods, I made the work more personal. But I saw a lot of common threads and that connected people based on things they were telling me. Again, about finance, about social economic condition, about things that, based on city politics that had directly affected them and their family, or their neighbors, people at their church. And that really made me understand more. A little bit of a side note. I've always been considering myself to be a politically aware artist. And respect, not just in regard to what's happening at the local, state, and national level, but when it came to what was happening to black folks everywhere. How my mom is from Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and my dad is from Sierra Leone. So I kind of had this interesting, synthesized idea of understanding of how systemic racism works in the United States, but also colonialism, from the West African perspective. And I saw the differences and I saw a lot of the similarities. And a lot of that, how I was raised in that household and in my perspective, and then seeing it, how black folks were living it through these things every day, really was a foundation of this work, what this work became, and what it's now turning into. Does anybody have any questions so far about what I do? All right. Now let's talk about a bit about the work, some of the physical nature of the work. When it comes to how I draw and how I paint, a lot of things are based on layering and surface quality, surface detail. I use traditional materials like paint, Conteh, charcoal, but I also incorporated non-traditional material like atomized steel dust, a myriad of metal powders, soil, and things, Jesus Christ. Things that are indicative of the detritus you see in the street. You go to a street corner or to a bus stop, you're gonna see some rust, you're gonna see mold, you're gonna see things that are emblematic of these spaces and places you see around the neighborhood. And I try to replicate those in my work, either with real erosion or things that are like trompe-l'oeil effects that are emblematic or resemble those things. So when it comes to surfacing that you see here, silica, urethane plastics, and specifically when it comes to urethane plastics, it's kind of like the base of some of the latex that we see that when it comes to house paint, acrylic. What I do is I add a secret blend of additives to my acrylics. And before the base is before it cures or it dries, I heat them with heat guns, sometimes blow torches, and it causes that paint to split. Even when I'm using atomized steel dust, I use things like muriatic acid, the things they use to clean swimming pools with. It's a mild acid, so it's not so much that it'll deteriorate the paper. But wine, lemon juice, vinegars, and at one time I did. Don't get grossed out, but I say this, I have used urine because that's one of the best oxidizers. But the reason I say all that, I gave all those that range of things, is because when it comes to the colors that can be produced with that different type of oxidation, it can go from blue green to those bright rusts and things of that nature. But even in this, there's some oxidized iron dust in the background, but I've also covered the top of it with acrylic. And to create that cracking, I superheat surfaces, I'll bend and flex, and I'll, even if sometimes I'll use rasps, orbital sanders, belt sanders to remove. And not just when it comes to the surface itself, but actually after I've done the drawing, the painting, I'll come back in and I'll erode the work. And the reason I've done that to the work is kind of synonymous when I think about black people as a group. Part of that, of what two fronts means, is being exposed to the elements. Now, when it comes to anything, man-made or otherwise, that's left outdoors without being tended to, get upkeep, it will nature will attack it. That is just the law of nature. So when you think about an object versus a person, you can see the weathering, you can see how nature has attacked steel, stone, wood, through rot, through erosion, water damage, things of that nature. But when it comes to people, that damage is different. So when you overlay and you think about societal factors versus these physical factors, that when I think about decay, I think about some of the things that we see happening to us and how we treat each other, how we undercut, or not us per se, but how society doesn't undergird our efforts. We are still standing, we are still present, we are still here, but we are damaged. So, any questions so far? Yes.
So I'm curious about the oxidation.
Oxidation. Yes.
So for that process, is that something that you always were interested in, or did you come to that later on? And then how did you think of
Well, again, I could be up here speaking for 2 hours. I'm kind of jumping a little bit. But before I got into this series, I was doing sculpture. Okay. Steel, cold rolled steel works. I was using some other non-traditional materials as well, but the baseline for those works was steel. So I was welding, in studio. When you're welding, one of the things, regardless if it's in the summertime or in the winter, is that the air takes effect. If it's summertime, it's going to be with Atlanta, it's going to be humid, and that steel is going to rust quick. See what I'm saying? So in the process of going through, making these works, I started understanding the nature of rust and oxidation. So before I even conceptualized this stuff, I made test pieces just to see how things reacted. And I kept this strip on my wall. I still got it in my studio now. Things that I'm doing with paper, things done on canvas, things with wood. And just kind of just kept an eye on them over the seasons and see how those things change. And, I also try to use different types of materials to see if I can freeze certain things I like, when it comes to polyurethanes, oil, water-based. Again, urethane, plastics, things you have to synthesize to cure, to kind of lock out that oxygen. I just made a bunch of test stuff just to see what worked. It's like throwing spaghetti against the wall, see if it sticks. And a lot of failure, but a lot of success. So when it came to those things I was mining through that sculptural work, I just applied that to this. A lot of things, some things changed, right? But when it came to what I wanted to do, the look, and also the language, I want those things to be in parallel and in lockstep with each other. You get where I'm coming from?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit about how you developed as an artist? Where did you start? Were you doing stuff as a kid, or?
Oh yeah.
Just fucking with stuff, or?
Yeah, you can say that. You can say that. I know I've been drawing since I was 4 years old, and I took it seriously. Seriously as a 4-year-old could, but I thought, it's I just never stopped doing it. I know I was, you get chicken pox. I have a twin brother. It was a summer. It was around 79 to 80. No, we fraternal. And he had chicken pox, so that means I had chicken pox. You know what I'm saying? So we waited for the summer, and I just started drawing. I just picked up, just started, doodling, and I just never stopped. It just one of those things that became a part of my character, who I am. So it's, some people sing, some people dance, some people speak. So when it came to how I saw the world, a lot of that came through my drawing. And kids usually, it has a more illustrative take. So, like, when you're a kid, you're watching cartoons, whatever else comes through your comic books and things. But that actually lent a lot to how I stylized my work, how I saw the world. Because I already had a handle of, ideas I was working through as a kid. But it actually lent to when I got to the classroom with, instructors like, I know you, Mr. Lindsay, but I had instructors like this, Mr. Lindsay at Hampton, and Pofo Auntie. Yes, I was, most definitely. Jacqueline Bontemps, the names go on and on, who were like illustrating stuff is cool, but we gotta learn something, gotta tear all that stuff out of you a little bit and build you back up. And, but that was the bedrock of how I understand how to get out my ideas. So over the course of time, I went from drawing to painting to sculpting to printmaking. So, I think I have a pretty good tool belt so far, and I'm still developing. I'm still learning. So, yeah. But I guess back to what this is, this series. This was a earlier work. This is a reproduction of a painting that's about 4 feet by 7 feet. And this drawing, I can tell you a little bit about this work. Curly Houghton, this was done in conjunction with Curly Houghton's print workshop, Ravens Editions. I'm pretty sure y'all aware of it. Me and Curly have done 3-4 prints at this point. So we talk periodically, and he calls me, and so we have a conversation. Say, hey, what you up to, man? What you got? What you working with? You want to do a print? So I thought about what I had, what I was working on, and this is not the first iteration of this piece. This is probably the 4th. So I sent him an unfinished rendering. This was when it was about 80% done. And he found it interesting, so he's like, you want to do this? You want to move forward with that? I'm like, sure, man. Let's work it out. So at the beginning of the year, I had an exhibition, myself, Curly Houghton, and Kevin Cole in Easton, Pennsylvania. And so in the time, we had to do an artist talk up there. So when I came up, I went to his workshop and got to meet with him, in his space. It was my first time going to see Curly's workshop. I had a great time, y'all. It's always cool to work with other artists to see how they formulate ideas. I got to see and meet his in-house master printmaker, Jace Clark. Brilliant young man, and he gave me some ideas about how he would like to see some things shift in color, and he projected some things on top of some of the things I was thinking through, and so I had a meeting of the minds and got to work. He sent me, when I got back to town, he sent me an artist proof, and I didn't like it. I think it needed a little bit be punched up in certain areas. So we had a couple of conversations, bring up some of the contrast here, push some of the color back. And here we are. It's the finished product from that run. And this will be coming out soon. So, yeah. Any other questions about my work process, anything like that? Yes.
You were saying earlier that you were working like 75 feet from the people.
Yeah.
And you moved in closer to the people.
Mm-hmm.
Did it change you, your perspective?
Mm-hmm.
Can you share some of that with us?
Again, when it comes to
Repeat the question. Can you repeat the question so we could hear what you're answering?
Oh, well, the question she was asking was that when I started doing this series, I would take reference photos of people out in the community. But I was taking photos of people from a distance, right? But when I wanted to make the work more personal and go into make it focus on the portraiture side of things, I had to get closer to people. So instead of me taking pictures from a distance, I had to get within arm's length. So let me tell you a bit about that.
So the question was, how did it change you?
How did it change me? Yes. So when it comes to talking to people and people sharing information about themselves, you have this notion, I guess as an artist sometimes, you want to be locked in hard into this idea about what you want to do. Like, I'm going to stick to this, and that's what I'm going to do. But the more I was sharing conversations with folks, and I'm taking photographs of them, I had to let a lot of that go. You know? Because I felt that those ideas weren't very, how can I say, they didn't really describe who that person was. These men and women and folks out here in the street, I just had to lock into who they were. So when I take these photographs, I took these photographs back to my studio and I started editing them and looking at them for the drawing or for the painting, I really had to be mindful about the conversation we had. So I started taking notes and started recording, and so when I did the drawings and I focused on imagery I want to use for reference, I wanted to make sure that what we talked about and how I depicted them was as close to who they were as possible. And that's why I think makes the work most authentic. I don't pose people, I don't tell them to stand a certain way, I don't bring them in. I'm out on the street, right? So I think that kind of lends to a certain air of realness to it. I can be talking to somebody at the beauty parlor, or I can be talking to dope boys on the corner. I just have to make sure that it just rings true to who they purport themselves to be to me. However the chips may fall on people's perception of it. So.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So what's the story of those guys? And what was their impression when you finished the work?
I'll give you a little bit more of insight. Usually the first people that see the work are the people I captured in the work. So, I usually get an email, but some folks don't have email. I try to get a phone number. Some people are like, I don't want, no. So I try to find a go-between, like somebody who kind of knows them, that I can kind of reach out to, and then they can get the information to them. But I haven't had too many bad experiences with anything when it comes to producing this work. But these are two young brothers. This is around COVID. This is around 2021. And hence you can see the mask in his hand. And, it's funny a lot of times when I'm out and about, because of my size, and, some people think I'm police, or, I can't shrink myself, right? But again, I try to explain very clearly who I am and what I do. And try to, to explain it in a way that makes folks understand like you have nothing to worry about. I'm out here just doing my thing, man. And sometimes it's static because people don't believe me, but more often than not, it works out for the best. And folks want to talk, want to ask me what I'm doing, want to see examples of my work. But again, back to the whole process of getting the photographs, they start talking. They start telling me about themselves. You're joking, laughing, or some people tell me some real stories about the things that's happening to them or what they're going through. So again, that has found its way into my work, and it's been very informative to guiding me along that path, but also be guiding me into new directions. So I will say this, at this moment in time, I'm making new work that's a bit more allegorical and symbolic. It's still rooted in this. It's still rooted in the people, but I'm taking some liberties to say some things that I think need to be said, especially at this point in time. So that's where I'm at right now. And that work will be, yes.
Why red, white, and blue?
I think it's pretty much super symbolic of of nationalism. When you talk about the national colors, red, white, and blue. But when it comes to other symbols in this work, you see Titans. That was actually was written on the young man's shirt, but I added the 1619 in there because we've been here that long. But I thought it was gonna be a nice little addition to that because again, it speaks to the allegory of us being here this long. And to be honest, when it comes to the societal factors we've had to deal with, we should have been gone a long time ago. We should have been wiped out. But we're still here. We're still standing. We're still thriving. Are we good on time?
Yeah, like 4 minutes. I got one question if it's okay.
Hit me.
So, because we got to keep the program running, this is going to be the last question for Alfred, but he'll be available to talk. But Alfred,
Yes.
brother, I feel like, you've always been one of my favorite. I think you're one of the coldest. I feel like we do everything that we can to celebrate you, right?
Mm-hmm.
But do you feel celebrated as a contemporary artist today?
Man, boy, can of worms right there. To put it plain, I still feel a way about I can't say it any other way. I don't know. I've been working in Atlanta for 20 years.
Wow.
And, again, my story is the same story as a lot of artists here locally, regionally and nationally. Unfortunately, despite my accomplishments, despite what I've done in town and mostly out of Atlanta, the reality is that institutions here have not recognized what I've done and what I've accomplished. And what I was going to say was I feel a way about it, but because I've gotten older and I'm kind of used to how things are, I don't really express it as much because it's like this is just reality of the game, And I gotta say that one of the reasons why I'm here is because when it comes to Najee, it's one of the things we talk about this, but all the reasons why I'm here is because when it comes to black institutions like this, it's important for me to be here so we can have these kind of conversations. Because until things start shifting locally in regard to artists such as myself, Sheila Freed, Kevin Cole, Arturo, the list goes on and on, until there's some real understanding about all these gaps and all these collections and all these folks who have been overlooked. We gotta support each other. We gotta show each other's work. We gotta circle the wagons around what we're doing in house. So Atlanta's gonna get the memo sooner or later, hopefully. But it's like I ain't got look. I ain't got no business having my home here and my representations in Baltimore and Chicago.
That's right.
That don't make no sense. I mean, everybody here knew Radcliffe. Radcliffe didn't have no church home here. He was with Jack Shaman for 20 plus years? That don't make any sense. So, I don't know who's gonna see this tape, where it's gonna go. But come on, man. Come on, Atlanta. Come on, High Museum. Come on, the Contemporary. Come on, Carlos Museum. Come on, everybody. UGA, Georgia Tech. Come on, man. So, there it is.
All right, there it is. All right, y'all. One more time for my main man, Alfred Conteh. We celebrating. If y'all want to take part in helping cover him and any of the other artists that you hear right to the curators, right to the museum directors.
Exactly.
You know, and post on social, tag them on social. You know, tag them some of your favorite artists. Become active, follow the artists, and see how you can be supportive of each and all the artists that you rock with. So those are just a few of the things. Thank y'all for rocking with Black Art in America. Follow us.
For sure.
Just want to thank my man, my brother Alfred Conteh. We believe in him because we own a bunch of work of Alfred. We take it to museum shows, and I've just always admired this brother. The first piece we bought back in the early.
Ooh, that was a long time ago.
Yeah, the first piece like that, man.
That work was nothing like what I'm doing now, you know. But it's strangely kind of similar to what I'm going to be doing.
Yeah.
It's kind of like going full circle. See what I'm saying?
Full circle. So let's celebrate the artist of the year.
I know you said no, 30 seconds if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
Do you have a lot of black collectors?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do. Yeah.